Rain whispered across the canyon rim at dawn, soft as a prayer nobody answered. The world was gray and trembling, a stillness before the sun rose. That strange hour when sound carries farther, when every breath feels heavier. Elias McCord rode slow through the mist, his oilskin coat slick with rain, hat pulled low against the wind. The land stretched before him like a wounded animal, shale cliffs, patches of sage trembling under the storm's last sighs. Then, somewhere below, came a desperate cry. High, broken, alive, he reined in hard. Down on a narrow ledge, a wild horse fought for footing, hooves slipping against the slick stone. Its flanks were bleeding where the rocks had cut deep. Elias's breath caught. Something in that struggle reached him, dragged him out of his own silence. He tied his reins to a scrub cedar, coiled his rope, and began his slow descent. The rain hit harder, filling the canyon with silver smoke. He spoke low to the animal as he went. Words meant more for himself than for it. Easy now. Ain't nobody gonna leave you behind. Mud slid beneath his boots, stone cracked under his weight, but he pressed on. When he reached the ledge, the horse's eyes met his, pale gray, filled with wild terror. He looped the rope around its chest and leaned back, pulling with everything left in him. The Mustang thrashed once, twice, then gave in. Together they stumbled upward, both soaked, shaking, and alive. That BY morning, word had spread across town. Elias McCord dragged a half-dead wild horse home from the canyon. Men at the feed store laughed over it. That feller's got more heart than sense, someone said. Another added, you don't waste good feed on a ghost. They weren't wrong about the name. The horse was pale and lean, its mane like torn silver thread. Elias called him Ghost because no other name seemed to fit. He brought Ghost to the old corral behind the livery, where the boards leaned and the earth smelled of wet dust. The horse wouldn't let anyone near but him. Even June Callahan, watching from under the porch, kept her distance. June was the ranch owner's daughter, or had been, before her father's death left her holding the land and the whispers that came with it. She watched Elias work, her arms folded tight, the brim of her hat shadowing her face. Some things can't be saved, Elias, she said, quiet but steady. He didn't look up. His hands brushed the mud off Ghost's flank with slow patience. The horse trembled, then stood still. Elias only said, maybe, but this one's still trying. That night, lanterns flickered inside the saloon. Laughter spilled out onto the muddy street. Elias passed through the doorway and felt the hush fall. The kind that comes when a man's name is still a story people ain't sure how to tell. Deputy Ward Hensley leaned against the counter, grinning with that easy arrogance youth carries like a badge. Heard you're keeping that wild thing alive, Ward said. Figure you two got a lot in common. Both half broke, both meaning to stay that way. Elias didn't rise to it. He just tipped his hat, turned his back, and left. The saloon's laughter followed him out, tinny and small against the night. Back at his camp, Ghost stood restless under the starlight, rope stretched taut, nostrils flaring at every sound. Elias sat by the fire, its light trembling on his weathered face. He thought of another horse, years ago, one that never came back from the war, and a woman who stopped waiting for him after. The flames hissed, and in that sound he almost heard her voice, saying his name like it still mattered. When he looked up, Ghost was watching him, ears forward. For a long while, neither moved. Then the horse took one uncertain step closer, as if drawn by the quiet. Elias reached out, palm open, and for a heartbeat, wildness and man shared the same breath. The days that followed were slow, filled with dust and patience. Elias worked with Ghost at dawn and dusk, never pushing too hard. When the horse reared, he didn't fight. When it bucked, he waited. People stopped by to watch, not to help, just to confirm what they already believed. He's wasting time, they said. June started coming too, pretending she had business nearby. Sometimes she'd bring apples, sometimes just silence. She'd lean on the fence, hat tilted back, eyes softening when she thought no one saw. She watched Elias speak to the horse, quiet words, rough-edged kindness. His hands moved slow, not to control, but to comfort. One afternoon, Ghost let him touch his muzzle without flinching. The moment was so still, even the wind seemed to pause. June whispered, mostly to herself, maybe he's not the only one needing taming. That evening, Elias found her standing by the gate, the sun setting fire to her hair. You believe in second chances? He asked. She smiled, faintly. I believe in stubborn men who don't know when to quit. He chuckled, just once, the sound like gravel breaking loose after years of silence. But peace in the West never lasts long. The storm rolled in again near sundown, dark and cold, wind howling through the ravines. Elias led Ghost out to test their trust, hoping the noise wouldn't break the fragile bond they'd built. The horse's muscles quivered under the lightning. Then thunder struck close. Ghost spooked, bolting straight toward the cliffs. Elias ran after him, boots slipping in the mud, calling his name though the wind tore the words apart. He found him trembling at the very edge, the same ledge where their story began. Elias slowed, voice low, steady as the rain. Easy now, boy. You're all right. Ain't nobody gonna make you fall twice. Step by careful step, he moved closer until Ghost's breath brushed his arm. The horse stood frozen, then finally shifted away from the edge. Elias reached out, laying a hand on his neck. They stood like that as the storm broke open above them. Man and beast, two silhouettes against the sky, bound by the kind of trust that can't be spoken. When the thunder quieted and the dawn began to rise, Elias whispered, almost to himself, "Guess we both got a ways to climb back." The horse snorted softly, as if agreeing. And for the first time in years, Elias McCord smiled. Weeks passed. The wind turned warmer, carrying the smell of sage and sun-warmed dust. On the outskirts of town, Elias McCord's corral shimmered in that kind of afternoon light that makes the world seem half a memory. Ghost had filled out, ribs no longer showing, his coat now a sheen of pale silver. He followed Elias freely now, no rope between them. Only quiet understanding. Word spread through the valley that the broken spur horse fair was coming. The one day of the year when men tried to prove themselves to each other through the animals they'd broken. At the feed store, Elias heard the talk. You bring in your ghost horse this year, McCord? Deputy Ward Hensley said, grinning like a man who needed someone to laugh at. Could use a good show. Folks get tired of watching you talk to that thing like it's human. Elias didn't answer. He just tightened the saddle cinch and turned to leave. Behind him, June Callahan's voice carried across the yard, low, even, cutting through the dust. They'll never see what you see, Elias. Not unless you show him. He paused, met her eyes for the first time in weeks. Something unspoken passed between them. Trust, maybe, or the memory of rain. He nodded once. Reckon I might. The fairgrounds roared with life when the day came. Fiddles singing, horses snorting, banners flapping like restless wings. The air smelled of sweat, whiskey, and summer. When Elias rode in, a hush fell. Men leaned on the rails, whispering. A few laughed quietly. The announcer, a round man with a red face, called out, Elias McCord and his wild catch, the ghost horse from the canyon. Let's see if the old-timers still got his touch. Elias said nothing. He guided Ghost into the center ring, loose reins hanging. The horse's ears flicked back, but his eyes stayed calm. Instead of showing off with spins or stops, Elias dismounted. He dropped the reins entirely and stepped back. The crowd murmured, confusion, mockery. But Ghost began to move, circling Elias in slow, perfect rhythm, muscles gliding under sunlit skin. Each turn was a quiet conversation, a bow, a breath, a pause. Elias raised a hand. The horse stopped, turned, and came to him. No whip, no bit, no word. Just trust. The laughter died. Even Ward's grin faded. Then, a gunshot. Someone's colt had spooked near the shooting game booths and burst free, galloping wild toward the ring. The crowd screamed, scattering. Ghost reared, hoofs flashing. The loose colt thundered closer, blind with fear. Elias stepped forward, calm in the chaos, voice barely above a whisper. Stay with me, boy. For one frozen heartbeat. It seemed the horse might flee, but instead, Ghost wheeled, placing himself between Elias and the charging colt. Dust exploded around them, sunlight cutting through like fire. When it cleared, Ghost stood firm, chest heaving, eyes blazing. The colt veered off harmlessly into the corral fence. Silence hung heavy over the arena. Then, one by one, hats came off. Applause rose, slow at first, then thunderous. June stood at the edge of the ring, her hands trembling, tears catching the light. She stepped closer as Elias ran a calming hand down Ghost's neck. Told you they'd see, she said softly. He gave a quiet nod. Guess it just took the right kind of storm. The crowd buzzed with talk, not about tricks or trophies, but about the man and the horse who'd stood their ground. Even Ward, red-faced, gave a reluctant nod. No apology, but respect all the same. As the sun dipped low, Elias led Ghost toward the hill overlooking town. June followed halfway, stopping at the fence. "Where you headed?" she asked. Elias smiled faintly. "Nowhere far. Just riding a while." She tipped her hat. "Don't be a stranger." He hesitated, then looked back at her. Wasn't planning on it. He mounted Ghost, the saddle creaking in the quiet. The wind carried the scent of rain again. Not heavy, just a whisper, like memory returning. They moved together across the open plain, slow and easy, as if the earth itself exhaled beneath them. The sky turned gold, then violet. Dust rose in soft spirals behind them, glowing in the last light. Somewhere in the distance, the canyon waited, the place where fear once lived. Elias looked toward it, then down at the horse beneath him. "Reckon we both made it out, didn't we, boy?" he said. Ghost flicked his ears, snorted softly, and kept on walking. The narrator's voice returns, low and timeless. "Maybe it ain't about taming what's wild. Maybe it's about learning how to stand beside it, quiet and sure, till it don't need to run anymore. Every soul's got a cliff somewhere behind its eyes, and every once in a while, if you're lucky, you find something worth saving that saves you right back." The camera lingers on Elias and Ghost riding into the sunset, silhouettes against a burning sky. Two survivors bound by grace instead of fear. And somewhere behind them, June Callahan watches, smiling through the wind, the kind of smile that promises the story ain't over, just resting a while beneath the stars.